Hey guys, I'm sure you guys have heard all the noise in the news about tariffs. And I want to talk to you today about what's going on with tariffs and ultimately how I think that it'll end up impacting you, if at all. But there's a lot of fear mongering going on right now. Those that are opposed to tariffs, for whatever reason that may be, whether it's political or just whatever their beliefs are. But I think they've blown that way out of proportion. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the tariffs, the way inflation works, and then kind of put it all together and hopefully explain to you what ultimately will happen with this and how it might affect you. So here we go. Tariffs. So tariffs are going to be imposed on certain goods, and that's basically going to increase the cost for other countries, and ultimately what will end up happening is our companies that sell those products that cost more because of the tariffs, they are saying basically that they're going to increase the cost on you, the consumer. So it's almost kind of like just a tax, just an additional tax. But I do want you to understand the companies don't have to do this. They're passing it on to you as the consumer. But short term, that may be the fix that they have to do to make their margins work. But ultimately, they can adapt, whether that be different supply channels, whether that be moving their production facilities, whatever it is they do to the U.S. in order to avoid those tariffs. So the tariffs are essentially going to be a short-term issue. And here's where the dynamics of the tariffs, longer term, nobody's really explaining. They're just trying to scare you into what the short-term effects are going to be. So let's take a minute and let's talk about inflation. Let's stop for a minute and talk about inflation, because that's what they're saying. They're saying the tariffs are going to cause inflation. So inflation is essentially the increase in prices over time. It's the increase in a basket of goods. All right. So these tariffs are not a tariff on every single thing we consume. So within that basket of goods, there's only a certain portion of those goods that are getting tariffed or are going to increase to you, the end consumer, due to the tariffs. So ultimately, will a few goods taking a 25%, 10% increase cause inflation as a whole to increase? Yeah, I don't know. Long term, I don't know. Maybe month over month, but year over year, I don't think they will. So I believe that, again, they're kind of blowing this a little bit out of proportion. They're just making a lot of noise right now in the media. But ultimately, what I wanted to explain too is this: is inflation is ultimately due to you, the consumer, and your habits. Without getting too boring in economics, you've got supply and demand. You've got a supply curve and a demand curve, and where those two meet in the middle is the equilibrium price of those basket of goods. And what the tariffs are essentially doing is, say you've got this basket of goods, they're taking a few of those out and putting the price up here. And what's going to happen is, the short term, it's going to cause those individual goods to increase in price. Is those few individual pieces going up going to cause your whole basket to go up? I don't know. I don't believe that they will. Maybe slightly for a short period of time. But here's what's going to happen. Let's say that those goods that were in that basket that increased in price, you as a consumer are going to have to adapt to that. Are you going to continue to buy those higher priced goods? Are you going to find a substitute for that good? Some things some people may be willing to pay that extra for them. Some may not. So what's going to happen is, over time, your habits are going to dictate whether or not the inflation goes up on those basket of goods, because you're either, if you choose not to buy those pieces of that basket that have gone up in price and you buy something else, or maybe you quit buying it altogether. What's going to end up happening on those goods that have those extra tariffs or have increased in price due to the tariffs, what's going to end up happening is the companies, if they can't get that price for them, guess what? They're going to have to bring those prices down, or they're going to have to figure something else out, maybe different supply channel, which ultimately brings that price down. So long term, do I think tariffs are going to cause inflation to increase? I really don't. And let me explain the difference between tariffs and what we saw in the last 3, 4, 5 years since the COVID pandemic. During the COVID pandemic, the money was flowing freely from the government, which put more money in your pockets, guess what, as the consumer. So as the consumer, when you got more money in your pockets, you're going to do what? Most people are going to spend that money. So what happened is, with all that extra money floating around the economy, people were buying more goods, either of something they already consumed, they were either buying more of it, or they were possibly buying something they didn't typically buy. Which, guess what? Caused that basket of goods, the demand for it, to go up, which increased the prices. Not to mention the additional complications of the supply chain disruptions that we faced during this period. So it was a complicated situation where you had multiple factors that were affecting the price of various different goods. Again, your basket of goods. That was a big part of the reason why from 2021 through 2024, we saw significant increases across the board. There was a ton of money in the economy that had been printed and circulated that wasn't there before. So the demand for a lot of goods had increased with supply chain restrictions. So there were two things moving against the cost of goods to cause it to go up. So that's the difference between what we saw in 21 through 24 versus what the tariffs may do. I hope that helps illustrate the differences in how that basket of goods may be impacted based on the different situations. But anyways, that's just my take on it. I don't think the tariffs are anything that you need to be overly scared of. Again, it may cause some market fluctuations. We're seeing that already. It may cause some goods to go up in price, but ultimately, do I think inflation is going to be impacted significantly? No, I really don't. So hope that enlightens you about the current situation. I hope that makes sense. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but that's just based off my economics background and just years in the financial world here. So if you guys are having questions about any of this stuff, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to help you. Talk to you later. Bye.